getting ready to bend these sides, you remember that previous, I put a triangle there so as to get the sequence good. I'm only going to need 2 of these 5. So put these in your cubby and for use later if one breaks, and if you never use them, that's fine too. We'll keep them for someone else that breaks later on. You're going to need 2 of these. So choose 2 of them, and preferably 2 that are in sequence with each other. Now, there's 3 types of guitars that you can choose from. And maybe come over here so you can look at these. We have the regular guitar, right, where both sides are the same. We have a Venetian cutaway, where this side has a sharp bend in it right there, and a regular on the other side. And then the Florentine cutaway, where you have a regular side, and then this one comes to a point. Now, the idea of both of these cutaways is that when you're playing, you can get your hand farther up into the body and into the upper frets. That's the idea of a cutaway. So those that buy cutaways, they like that idea. Those that make it, usually it's just like, hey, that looks cool, it looks challenging, so I'm going to do it. You can do any of them. However, I will tell you that the regular is the easiest to make. That's an easy bend, and it's not just right now, it's into the future. We're constantly having to make adaptations in order to make those cutaways. So these are more challenging. Of these 2, I would say they're both equally challenging. The bend is tougher on the Venetian, but later down the road, it's a little bit more simple. The Florentine, it's an easy bend to begin with, but it's more challenging down the road. So they equal out pretty well. So here's some sides that have already been bent. And look at the way it goes into the form. Like this. And then they come out. The Venetian cutaway that's the regular side. This goes into form like that. And I'll show you how to use these forms. And then the Florentine, I don't have a sample, but it goes like this. That's one piece, and then we have to cut the side, and then we make that. So that eventually it's going to go like that, and then swoop down. Now, how do we get wood to bend? First of all, you notice that we thinned it out significantly. 0.093 seems to be the right amount of thickness to make it bend. The thicker wood gets, the harder it becomes to bend. There is inside the structural cells of the wood what's called lignin. And this lignin, once it gets hot, and the amount of heat is 180 degrees. Once it gets to 180 degrees, it gives, and we can manipulate it. Then we let it cool, and it retains in memory that bend. So, we're going to take our pieces, we're going to put them into a hot bath of water, and there's some in here, you can see the steam already. This is cooking, getting ready for us. We pull it out, put it into the form, manipulate it how we want to, and then we let it dry and let it sit for weeks. Preferably 3 weeks and longer if we can. The longer it stays in its form, the better it retains its memory. So let's go through some of the details. And I'm going to bend each of these for you. We'll start with the regular. Choose 2 of your sides. Those 2 should be, or preferably, are next to each other in your sequence. So I'm going to use these 2. Now when we make this, we need to do what's called an end match. Right, so the way these come together on the end is aesthetically pleasing. So they match each other and then they bend as they go around the sides. That's what we want. So as we put these into the form, we want to make that happen. And if you're doing a regular, it's the easiest one to do. You take your two pieces in sequence, you open them up so that there's a book match. Notice those two wormholes there, those two there, right? The grains line up with each other. That's a book match. So the end, right, are sequenced like this in the triangle. Open them up and book match them. Then slip one over the other. Now they're ready for bend in this form, and we're going to bend both of them at the same time. Take two pieces of laminate. These is a plastic fiber material. It helps support it. And I'm going to put the white side in. You're going to put your name on this. So that you know they're there. These are yours. And then you're going to put them into the cooker. Now let's talk a little bit about the water in this cooker. And I'm going to set them in there. This is a copper tray. Copper because it's resistant, it doesn't rust to water. Notice that it's plugged in. It's on a hot plate that goes and gets plugged in, and this water takes about 15 minutes to get hot, and it eventually wants to boil. Boiling is 212 degrees. We have to get the wood to 180. So if it's boiling, that's going to get it, and it's okay if it's hotter than 180. If we can get it all the way up to 220, that's good. That's when it evaporates. So it needs to sit in here for about 30 minutes once it's hot. After 30 minutes, it has heated this up enough that it's ready for bend. We'll pull it out and put it onto the form. We can fit about 3 sets. We have 2 pans and we can sit about 3 sets per pan. But if other students are putting stuff in here, you need to make sure your name's on it so you don't get them confused with each other. Okay? If it's cold when you come to use this, you got to turn it on, make sure there's water in it. Should be about half full. And it takes the water about 15 minutes to heat up, and then 30 minutes beyond that to get your pieces ready. If there's more pieces in there, it takes longer, right? It's just physics. It takes longer to heat up. So generally this process is about an hour long, and you need to make sure you have that hour. You can't leave your sides in here wet overnight or next day. You can leave them in longer than an hour or longer than a half an hour, but what we don't want is this water evaporating out and then being dry. Then it starts to cook your sides instead of just getting them hot and blackening, and you have to start over. So, now let's get the form ready. I'm going to need some clamps to clamp this down to the table and to each other. Let's set up this form for the bend. I'm going to need, so here's the regular form, that's what we're bending first. I need 4 small clamps and a long one, and then a couple of blocks. 2 really is all I need. I'll save these for my next one. And these blocks just need to be as tall as the form and as your sides. 4.5 inches is what they are. And you get them from the garbage can. Just go find a piece that's been thrown away and cut them into segments. Okay. Notice that I am on a table right next to the cooker. this is where you need to be, on this table, not way over there. Right? You're taking this out, and the walk over there alone will cool these sides enough that they won't bend well. You have to work fast. So everything has to be ready. When we pull these sides out, we're moving, and we're moving quickly so that we're bent within seconds. So this regular, I set it up right here, and I'm going to put 2 clamps to hold the form down to the table. We are going to be putting a lot of pressure on this to bend it, and we don't want it moving around. So let's walk through a little sample. I'm going to use a piece of laminate just so you can see what's going to happen. We're going to, and you want to do this with a partner, so I've got Mr. McDonald here helping me out. Him or I are going to pull out the sides and place them right here. 8 inches from this spot is where the top wants to be. So measure 8 inches right there. Then I'm going to pull this in and put a clamp on it. Alex, you'll need one of the big ones to reach across. Yep. Okay. Now I'm going to put lots of support, right? I'm going to bend it, and this is going to want to break that way. So I put lots of support behind it as I bend this around and put a block there. Then a clamp goes right there. Same thing then goes on this side. Lots of support as it makes the bend around. You're going to want to work in pairs. This is much easier to do with 2 people, just like I'm doing it. And you're going to want to walk through it just like this. You want to know what you're doing before you pull the sides out. So walk through this dry fit. So that looks good. Okay, let's do the real thing. Now, you'll notice that there's steam coming out of here. This has been sitting now for at least 30 minutes in hot water. If the water wasn't hot when you put your sides in it, it needs to sit for at least 45 minutes. Longer times is fine. If it sits for an hour, fine. If it sits for 2 hours, that's fine. You just need to have water in here so that it's not losing the water. Okay, so I'm going to pull it out with these tongs and then bring it over, and then we'll do our bend. Couple of sets in here. Notice that it's dripping with water. Close that. So I'm measuring 8 inches there. Pull that in. That's a little tougher. It's got a lot more than that one piece of laminate. Now I've got lots of support right there as I come around. Take my block. Now notice that these sides are coming past the form. That's good. Right, they're going to be trimmed off there later, but it's got to come past that side. On the other side, very good. Beautiful bend. Okay, now I'm going to take it and we're going to let it sit. We're going to go put it up there above C and D up on top, where it's going to sit for a few weeks.